We count the cookware, not the cooking. Diana Oehrli at The Pressures of Privilege, June 1st, 2026. Everybody wants the kitchen. Nobody wants to do the dishes. We count the cabinets, the countertops, the Dutch ovens, the grain mills, the retro appliances, the cast iron pans. Forbes recently reported that sales of cast iron cookware at big box stores like Target and Walmart have risen 30 to 40% in the last 18 months, driven largely by younger consumers. We count the products that make domestic life beautiful. We don't count the hands in the dishwater. That is the strange trick of the tradwife economy. It has made the kitchen valuable again, but not the work done inside it. In a recent New York Magazine essay, Sarah Jones argued that the tradwife is not real so much as a figure we project our anxieties onto. Maybe. But whether the tradwife is real is the less interesting question. The labor is real. Someone still has to cook the food, wipe the counters, pack the lunch, change the sheets, notice the stomach ache, remember the permission slip, and stand at the door when the child comes home. The fantasy can be photographed. The labor cannot. I know because I once mistook losing that labor for freedom. I had thought that by moving the kids to private school, life would improve. I would no longer have to write late into the night after bedtime. I would no longer have to cook lunches. Suddenly, I had mornings and middays to myself. I told myself that was freedom. Time for the book, time for the magazine. But true to Parkinson's law, work expanded to fill every hour it freed. I had made life more convenient and somehow busier. That first day, my daughter came home with her eyes cast down, her usual bright face gone quiet. How was lunch? They only gave us 20 minutes. I had a stomach ache all afternoon. My own stomach tightened. I had cried at lunch that day, missing them, missing the way they used to bound through the door, full of what they'd made, what they'd found, what they were thinking. In their old school, the children walked home to eat. I was there. The table was set. That was the life I had traded away for the promise I had absorbed at Barnard, that a professional life had value, while the domestic one remained lowly and invisible. The problem was that I no longer belonged anywhere. In Gstaad, I had left my father's blue-collar world, where women took care of their households completely. But I didn't belong to the world of the private school mothers either. Most of them did not work. After drop-off, they went to the gym, then the hair salon, then 3-hour martini lunches, school pickup, cocktails, dinner out. Nannies did the actual work. These women weren't tradwives. They weren't career women. They were a third thing. Women who had outsourced the labor entirely and filled the hours with something that looked like leisure, but felt like nothing at all. I called them the housewives of Gstaad. That third thing is everywhere now. Online domesticity has become an aesthetic. The kitchen, the dress, the flowers, the baby, the bread. But often the image comes with a wink that says, the real work is beneath us. No wonder young people want to be influencers. They see the glamour. They don't see the dirty dishes. Economists have a name for part of this blindness. Nancy Forbes has written for years about the way unpaid household labor disappears from the official economy. Cook for your own children and the work vanishes. Pay someone else to do the same work and suddenly it becomes output. That is the trick. The work does not become more valuable when it is invoiced. It only becomes visible. I learned that lesson again when my marriage fell apart. My husband's lawyer made a tidy argument. My daycare expenses were unnecessary. I had enough money not to work. What I earned at the magazine did not justify what childcare cost. He was not wrong about the math. What he could not count was what the job gave me. Adult conversation, professional relevance, a thread back to the life I had built before marriage and motherhood. None of that invoiced, so none of it counted. Swedish author Katrin Marsal, who wrote, who cooked Adam Smith's dinner, noticed something similar about the father of modern economics, Adam Smith. The thinker most often associated with the idea that self-interest drives economic life, left his own mother's labor out of his calculations, though she cooked, cleaned, and cared for him his whole life. This came up the other day while I was walking with my 80-year-old friend Henry. We were talking about what would happen if we treated the household like a department in a business, work with labor, management, consequences, and value that deserves to show up on the balance sheet. One answer may be less glamorous than the fantasy and more practical than the outrage. One parent works full-time while the other works part-time. Either parent by choice, not by default. Another is the multi-generational model, grandparents under the same roof, sharing the work. Henry said I was onto something. When he wound down his painting business, he and his workers moved to 8 a.m. to noon. "That guy's loved it," he told me. Now he's in his garden creating a masterpiece. He grows vegetables, he buys seeds, pots, tools, and soil. Those purchases count. The labor in the garden does not. That is not a mistake in Henry's life. It is a mistake in our counting. We count the cookware, but not the cooking. We count the daycare bill, but not the mother at the table. We count the gym membership, but not the garden that keeps a man moving. We count the medical bill when a body breaks down, but not the daily labor that may help him keep it whole. I'm not saying every woman should stay home. I'm not even saying women should do this work. I'm saying somebody has to do it. And when nobody does, the cost does not disappear. It shows up later in schools, hospitals, courts, treatment centers, and exhausted families. Other countries have at least started to admit the problem. In Switzerland, where I raise my kids, families receive a monthly child allowance, a modest sum paid through the system, attached to the reality of raising a child. It's not enough to compensate the labor of parenting, but it is an admission written into public life that a child costs time, money, and care, and that raising one has value beyond the private household. What happens at home, the lunch, the walk through the door, the 20 minutes that became a stomachache, is not sentimental decoration. It's infrastructure. We have built an entire economy on the lie that it is not. What gets counted gets valued. We have been counting wrong from the start. If this episode landed for you, share it with someone who might need to hear it. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. But here's the real thing I want you to know. If you're carrying something you can't talk about, if you have every resource except someone who actually understands what wealth costs, I work one-on-one with people like you navigating exactly that. You can reach me at Diana Oehrli.com. Thanks for listening.